And good night, everybody. Welcome to Fatherhood Talks, your weekly rap session with fathers that matter, fathers that care, fathers that want you to be there. That rhymes. That sounds good. I'm working on my intros a little bit better. I'm Ron Osborne Williams. I'm a father of one daughter. And we have the rest of the fathers here tonight that are going to participate in this conversation. Tonight's topic is no more Mr. Nice Guy. And we're gonna, people see that and they say, "Oh boy, what does this mean?" We're gonna get fathers explain to you maybe what it means to them, and then we're gonna break it down a little bit more on this idea, no more Mr. Nice Guy. But before we do that, let's go and see who's in the house tonight. We have a big house of fathers tonight, and as I see. And we have some real heavy hitters in here today. So we are stacked. And so I know the conversation will be really hot and heavy. And we're really gonna get some words out to you people who are watching today. So if you are watching, I just want to say to you, hey, like us, share us, subscribe to us, and try to join us weekly. And get some and you can participate. If you would like to participate, definitely be able to come in the chat. And if you want to come on live, if you're a father, we welcome you to sit in the audience. And it's not an audience where the studio audience, it's the audience where if you feel something and if the spirit hits you to say, as a father, I think this and that, jump on in there and get in the conversation, because that's what this is for. It's not a lecture. It is a group of fathers having a conversation, and every father has a voice. So let's turn it over to the panel and see who's here tonight.
Yes. Elder Thomas Alberry, father of two. They're grown, and my grandfather are 7. 2 boys, 5 girls. Welcome.
Donald Jones, divorcing father of 2, a female and a male.
Gene Robert Menard, father of 2 young adults, 1 boy, 1 girl.
Larry Jordan, father of 2, 1 grandchild. Considering the topic, I think I'll operate in my alter ego, so y'all can call me Big Larry tonight.
All right, Big Larry. Johnny Gaspard, father of 2, a 23-year-old and a 20-year-old. And I'm grateful to be on tonight to share this No More Mr. Nice Guy. I might have to figure this one out with y'all.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lionel Lightbourne. I am a father to a tribe of 7, all young adults, 1 granddaughter who just turned 10 years old. She told me she's in what she said she's in. She's in the beta club. I'm like, okay, I'll find out what that is in a minute, but she's doing pretty good. I'm very proud of. I'm proud of all of them. But it's always a pleasure to be here with this on this fatherhood. I like to think of it as a fatherhood think tank. So always a pleasure.
My name is Ed Tenney. I am part of a blended family of 6. I have 3 biologicals and 3 stepkids, and a granddaughter who is 100 days old today. Just came back from the hospital. She's doing great.
Oh, yes. Finally at the house. Great. Great to hear that. Glad to hear that, Eddie. All right, Frederick, Rohan, Talon, Jay.
All right.
Justin Gibbs. And Castro.
I'm Justin Gibbs, father of 4, perhaps 5. I have 3 girls, 1 boy, and that's about it.
And
my name is John Alexander Ramirez,
right.
affectionately known as Castro. Congratulations to the granddaughter of 100 days. That's amazing. I am a father of two, a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. Pleasure to be in this room. Thank you.
Hi,
Frederick Adams, a father of 3, 1 grandson.
Yeah, Tylon, you Xavier Washington. I'm a father of 7, 4 grandchildren, and just glad to be here.
hi, fathers. I'm a father of 2, a divorced dad. A boy, sorry, 2 girls, Amaris and Annalise. And as usual, it's a pleasure being here with you, fathers.
Hey, Tylon, you do radio? Like
Yes,
like late night radio or something?
Yeah, one of the businesses I have is I have actually an internet radio station. It's called GoPro Radio. You access it is absolutely free. Go to www.goproradio.com. And Ron and I have a show on there. It's called the Colored Only Cafe. It's on every Monday between 9 and 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Thank you very much. You just sounded like that dude at late night, the late night radio. You got that voice.
Hey, he got that deep late night voice.
Like,
the hour,
no, this is for the ladies.
There you go.
that would help explain those, 6 kids, right? Don't get it twisted. The voice can do everything, right? You know how that goes. I think that's everybody introduced themselves. So let's get right into this, guys. We came up with this topic, no more Mr. Nice Guy. And I'm curious to hear what people are thinking that this represents for us as fathers. Does it represent to moms, no more nice guy? Does it mean to the kids, no more nice guy? Where are we going with this idea of Mr. No More Nice Guy?
That can go a lot of different ways. It can go from the kid's mom, the kids, the in-laws, your friends, everything.
So what I hear you saying, Frederick, is sometimes you feel like you got to turn into no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah. And some of them they'll will push the envelope, you know what I mean? But but when they come out, they look at you like you crazy or you did something wrong when you check them.
Okay, all right.
Well, I 100% agree with what Fred just said, because sometimes you try your best to be amicable in situations, and some people have a way of trying to take your kindness for weakness, or not even your kindness, but just your willingness, to work it out, to be amicable in the situation, and they'll try to take advantage of the situation, whether it be your the mother of your children, or the kids themselves, especially when they try to put parents against each other who are no longer in the same household. So, it's one of those moments where you realize that as a father in certain situations that, they trying to play me, and at that moment, your whole attitude changes, not necessarily completely, but you understand now. So you're able to better discern those moments and be the man that you're called to be, as opposed to allowing them to take advantage or control the narrative in that moment.
One thing I think. Oh, go ahead, Lana, because I know that's go ahead. I can hold.
Ron, go ahead. You're the host with the most. Go ahead. I'll listen to you and I'll come back.
So let me tell you one of the first things when you talk about no more Mr. Nice Guy that I think of is that we forget a lot of times that a lot of dads, and I'm speaking to those dads who have become dads in my theory of non-custodial, non-consensual fatherhood, right? They make the decision to be a nice guy. They don't turn away. They don't argue if the baby's there. They don't say that's your problem. They say, and then sometimes they even go to the next level of saying, oh, let's get married because I don't want my child to be brought up without the mom and the dad and the whole 9 yards. And I think what you sometimes see later when they realize this doesn't work, they become this no Mr. Nice Guy. Because they did everything and thinking that they were being virtuous, they was being a man and standing up. But then I think it's almost like a setup for them. because maybe you should have not took that path. Maybe you should have said, let me just be a father and try to, how can I work out to be a co-parent with you before I just jump into this fantasy that's not yours. People who get married, I think, deserve and want to get married to each other. They're not forced. And if we find out very often in forced marriages, even if it's on their own cognizance, those marriages don't work. And they end up in a lot of pain and hurt because someone's now feeling like they did something because they didn't want to. Oh, you don't really love me. You just married me because of this kid, and on and on. So I think that sometimes we have to be mindful that we might not need to be the nice guy. We need to be the reasonable guy.
Can I say something before Lightborn jumps in and shocks all of us? Just my perspective. I think that when we talk about nice guy, we have to give up a piece of ourselves, an identity of ourselves that says, I'm taking this one. I'm taking this one in the chin because if I blow it up, I'm gonna burn it down, right? So that negates our true self, right? And I have an issue with that because we can't be our true self, our most authentic self, if we're limiting ourselves in a sense, right? And I remember when I was looking at getting married, I was 32 at the time, and I was consciously making a decision of who I was going to be a husband to and who I was going to have kids with, right? I wasn't 27 and oh shit, she got pregnant. Like I was methodical about how I went about having kids, right? And I remember a friend of mine gave me advice, and he said, "Dog, don't lose the animalistic side of you that got her. Because what happens after X amount of years of marriage, that goes down and we feel like we lose ourselves in a sense. Remember that they got attracted by that. Don't lose that side of you." And at the time, I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't know what that means, but all right. 7, 9 years in the game now, I'm like, you know what? When I step in my masculine, I step in my ultimate, and I didn't lose that side of that roughneck side that she was like, oh shit, I fucked with him, right? Because women need that. That's what appealed to them. That's what rocked them for them to be able to open up themselves to us in a sense, right? You didn't just get her because you were quick with the mouth. You got all of her for that moment, right? So how do you maintain that now in a chosen way of marriage? I have to say that if I lose myself, my identity, because I'm trying to please her, because I'm trying to be the nice guy, everybody loses. So just from that perspective of approach, I wanted to bring that in because I wanted to hear what Lightborn says, but just throw that in, my 2 cents in the mix. So thank you, gentlemen.
I hear it.
No, that was awesome, Castro. Matter of fact, it just triggered some expanded on what I had planned to say. I think there's 3 nuances of guys, or 3 nuances of men when it comes to personalities and character. I think you have Mr. Nice Guy. I think you have Mr. Necessary Guy. And I think you have Mr. Nasty. I opt to be 2 of those guys. I could be the nice guy, or I could be the necessary guy. So and that can fluctuate. It evolved depending on the environment. So, and I think most people evolve depending on the environment that they're in. We can see the nonverbal nice guy and necessary guy, whether it's the nice guy who may just be it a guy to guy. We may be the nice guy who may just give you that what's up nod, and that's nonverbal when he's passing by. And so the other dude get the what's up nod, you understand? And that just indicate that the environment's safe. I'm safe with you, and I hope you safe, you safe with me, and I hope I'm safe with you. And then you got the non-verbal when it comes to your kids. You may do something goofy. It's just that playing. That's the nice guy too, that non-verbal nice guy. When you play with your kids and stuff like that, and you may create a character. Oftentimes I used to create this character, I think it was from Liar Liar, with the claw with my kids. And so they knew the different nuances and transitions with the environment when it came to the nice guy versus the necessary guy. Now, the necessary guy would give that really, and it's not a mean look, it's just a blank. And so you can see me evolve really quick to a blank, just a blank stare. It's a very cold stare. And my kids, even my wife would know it right away, like, okay, the environment has shifted. Something either was said or something that actually triggered that, which is back to Castro's point, instinctively trigger that, because as a man, I should be very, very instinctive when it comes to my environment, because men are environment driven. You understand, in order to be sufficiently responsible for the lives they're responsible for. And so not only am I paying attention to you, but I'm paying attention to the people and the environment around you. And so those are the indications and the nuances that men need, actually, to be either nice or necessary. Nasty is something that I'm not. Nasty is something that I did experience in my younger and immature, selfish days. You understand? And that was just, be it pettiness was triggered in me, or I was just vengeful, what you call it, vengeful. But other than that, I got rid of Nasty, or Mr. Nasty. Well, I ain't got totally rid of him. I mean, he served his purpose in different places. But
your environment.
Put a disclaimer there. But the one I function in and for growth and prosperity and progress is Mr. Nice or Mr. Necessary, but never Mr. Nasty.
I like that breakdown, Lightburn. Nice, nasty, and necessary. And I think
well said.
Yes,
well said.
very,
That
very
shadow
well.
saves us.
For
well
sure.
Said.
I think ultimately we all operate in those three. Again, like you said, when the environment calls for it, some of us at times tend to, be too nice. And I think, again, that's just a lot of it has to do with your personality, what you've been exposed to, how you've been raised. All of those things play a role in which one of those have more, pull more out of you than the other. But there comes a time with every man, regardless of how nice he may be, that there's a button you can push that he goes from nice to real, to necessary, to real nasty, real fast. So it just depends on the level of who you are and what you've been through that will determine which one of those three men is more affluent in who you are and what you present to the world. But I do agree that sometimes being a father, it requires us to be more nice and necessary, and very rarely nasty unless we're protecting them. I think if you're a father, you're nasty, your children feel your nastiness, you're doing them a disservice. Your children should never feel you're nasty. They should feel it if it's about protecting them. And they should know, oh, dad got us. They ain't gonna do, they ain't gonna, treat us any crazy way. But from the perspective of your children and your relationship with them, they should never feel the nasty of you, in my opinion. Always the nice and the necessary.
Mm. Oh, I like to add also, well said, Johnny. Life is situations. You get up in the morning and you have different situations you go through every day. Some in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. And I would add that, as Lionel said, there's the nice and necessary and nasty. But I want to say this, so to most men are seen as aggressors. You guys may not agree with that, but if you were to look out around you, look on the television, on the news, young men, older men, people tend to look at certain men as aggressors. Now, what I would add to that, I always say start from the end and go back to the beginning. And I say that because some men they deal with more situations than other men. Let's just put it that way. And one of the things that's very challenging, raising a child, having a relationship, having what I call chronic stress, you have to be able to, I personally would go with the nice guy, because most people look at certain people and they have that, the first thing, they put their arms up and they say, okay, this is a nasty person, or this is a not necessarily a necessary person, but they have a perception that you're nasty. The reason I bring that up is that there are some situations, again, you have to protect yourself. But keep in mind, if someone has a perception of you, or what's the word, already have a viewpoint of the kind of person you are, or think who you are, you've got to be very careful how you play into their narrative. Because remember, everyone has a target and everyone has a plan. Try not to engage in their plan. I think that works very well for all men. Again, people play games, and don't be the one playing games, because most times it doesn't work out well for most men. So I want to keep that in mind. I know it's hard to be the nice guy, but I can say this so as a health advocate. You have smiles takes away stress, and some situations you really need to smile at. And if you have to walk away, walk away. You don't want to engage. Food for thought.
Good point.
Well, you know, I got to be honest. I got to say honestly, like most of my life, I'm 50 something years old. I've been nasty, and I think you grow up. I grew up in Browns, Brooklyn. Kindness.
Your reception is bad, Tylon. We can't hear you. You're breaking up real bad. Tylon, you hearing us?
That's that overseas long distance stuff. That because folks, if you don't know, this is international. Fatherhood Talks is not just in one little corner. We all in the same place. We all over the country, fathers. So hopefully we can get him back online. But also we got to remember he in New York, so they signal up there in New York.
What happened?
Oh, you was.
I got cut off. You cut me off, Ron?
Yeah, you was off the whole time.
Oh man. Okay. Well,
you might be being shadow banned because
maybe
the FBI's most wanted list.
You know what I'm saying? But the reality, I think this is true, and I think men don't like to say it because masculinity is a bad thing and it's toxic, and we all know that, right? It's in cultures in the movie I was talking about. So when we tried it, there's this attack on that, but people all of a sudden find it necessary when you join the army or if you become a police officer, and it's good to be, nasty and tough, whatever. But I think what helps with the nasty side, and I'm talking to folks who always have challenges with dealing with the nasty, is be intentional, meaning that you're clear about why you do things. And I used to think, and I had a lot of bad information growing up, that you do something good, people will be good to you. That's not true. And I think that if you understand that you're doing good, and your children might not even appreciate it. Your girlfriend, your wife, your significant other might not really be grateful or gracious or whatever. So if you're clear that you're doing things with the intent that this is for you, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good to be good and to do good, even if people may not reciprocate, people may not understand, or people may even take it for granted, or people may see you being good as soft. And so, it depends on your environment and your circle. And that's what I'm saying. That's why we, as men, we have to be very dynamic, with our nasty, than being necessary and being nice, and understand that in certain places it's appropriate to be very nice. In certain places it's appropriate to be necessary. And probably depending on where you are, that's why they call it code switching, right? We get at jobs and we got to hear nigger jokes or little cornball comments, and you got to kind of like ignore it and stuff like that. And you got to keep Mr. Nasty on that leash, right? Because Mr. Nasty want to get out sometimes. But the idea is to understand and be clear about moves that you make. You know what?
Ooh.
I might do this.
Tylon, you broke up right there at the end, man. The devil busy, y'all. He about to give us his point right at the end too.
Busy. Yeah, he's shadow banned. He's shadow banned.
Yes,
yeah. I don't know how much you caught, but
hey, sometimes you can't get certain people on somewhere because they got high frequency on their thing. I'm just glad that it happened to me because I keep everything nice and clean. Tylon probably keep the nasty, and I keep the nice, so I don't get all that cut off.
I just try to keep it 100, and I just
Castro, was you saying something?
Man, that brother that was just speaking, Thailand, Mr. Washington, bro, I receive you, man. I appreciate everything you said. To me, it comes back to agape love for ourselves, right? Like, be unapologetically you, right? Like, take care of yourself first. There's a concept of a book. Give me a minute, papito, por favor. There's a concept of a book, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Wilkins, right? You can spend 8 hours listening to the book. You can take however long to read it. I'll give you the high level. As men, we should elevate ourselves quick, right? I'll give you the high level 12-minute minute read. Ain't nobody coming to fucking save you. You gotta save yourself. Like, that's it. If your message isn't being understood, it's because you didn't say it right and take ownership of what you're not doing correct for yourself, right? Because if you are truly self-resilient and have agency, you should be living the life you designed, right? The life that you created, because everybody works for you. Life happens for you, not to you, right? So if it's self-love and you love yourself, I had to realize, bro, when I'm getting my ass kicked, I realized that I still thought in Spanish, right? I'm getting overhead smacked and they're telling me to learn a poem. And in my head, I still got to translate it in Spanish to English and then come back. I say that you have to have a level of awareness within yourself that I had to realize I had to talk to myself, te quiero, to touch to my native tongue, to touch to myself, of how I love myself, right? So I say that because as people of the Nile, we've lost our tongue, our native tongueness in a sense, right? So our ability to reconnect to ourselves is primal and is needed to create the village that the young men see, the models. We're the models that create this for men to see, right? Iron sharpens iron because we're inspired by others, right? The 4-minute mile was broken, and then like a week later, some other dude did it, and then somebody else did it. Why? Because it's like somebody just needed to be the first one, and the leader is not the first one. The leader is the second dude. The leader is the one that validates the first crazy mother, right? That's leadership. That's what men do. Men validate, and that's why women, in a sense, can't do what we do, and we can't do what they do, right? So it's that feminine and masculine that matters. But for this presence in this situation, in this topic, and why men are here, what my dharma and my unique gift and what I want to do is men, because men lead men. And I have 2 boys that I have to validate and train to be men so that they can be consciously aware of how their toxic masculinity, if not checked, will damage society, right? So when you talk about impact, it's how you move as a man, as the example that you are. And your emotional intelligence, I go back to executive function, your ability not to lose your shit because somebody triggered you, that's what separates you.
It does.
That's what separates you. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the space that you create. Cheers. Love. Agape for each other, for love, for self.
And I think
love ourselves.
Continuing on what Castro's saying, and playing on what a lot of people said tonight. I just want to say, we society tends to think that they tend to think that men are linear. We are complex people. We deal with a lot of stuff, and the complexity and the level that we deal with it is a whole lot different, especially as minority than any other group. And so understanding that and dealing with those, first understanding that you're going to deal with complexities. Second, how you handle those complexities, even something as simple as no more Mr. Nice Guy has levels to it. And, going back to Lightborn said, he gave the 3 examples, but even within those 3 examples, there's levels to it. Because when you first step into a location, you assert your dominance right off, because people have to understand there's something you're not going to take, right? And so you do it unspokenly, like Lightborn was saying. Unspokenly, you've already established because of the way you step into a room, right? Now, depending on how someone comes at you verbally, you check them, because now there's another line that I don't need you to cross. First non-verbally, now verbally, through your actions. And so even with that, there are different levels that you're taking, and when you're stepping into an environment, any environment, whether it be work, whether it be your house, whether it just be walking down the street, we put ourselves in a situation so that we can understand that, so that people can understand where we're coming from at any given level. So
that's right.
It's just I don't want people to walk away from this, you know, this segment thinking that, oh, you know, guys are simple. No, we're not simple. Our mind are complex. We think at a high complex level, like Castro was saying. Right. And the way we process, maybe sometimes it will be emotional, sometimes it will be intellectual, and sometimes it'll be a mixture of both, depending on how you come at us and what environment that we're in.
And a third part may be physical of that how we come forward with that. But yeah, man, exactly. I definitely agree.
You know, honestly, when I was more insecure, I got into more confrontations. I think once you, where you say, when you're more secure with yourself, I think you just walk. You have a certain presence. There's a certain air about you that keeps you from getting into certain situations with other men, with women, with children, with people around you, because they understand. It's something to be said about presence and energy and state of mind. And when you have that, and you're secure in that, you're going to find yourself having fewer moments of having to turn on and off this dial and go up and down the frequency, because people will get a sense of who you are. And when you step in the room, you can even change vibrations. You can change the frequency when something's even about to happen, and it doesn't happen because you stepped into the room.
Yes, sir. That is so true. And I experience it. And I say this to y'all, I experience it more so. It's weird. And I know being an attorney does play its role. Oftentimes I'll step in a room and I don't say, a lot of people ask me, what do you do? There's something about me that says I do something more than what everybody else around me does. I'm like, why do you say that? He said, there's something about you that's more than just this. I remember when I first moved to South Florida, and after graduating from law school in Louisiana, and I moved here, I started working at the stadium, at all of the stadiums in the suites, because I was dressed in a suit, and I was my boss. I'm my own attorney. I passed the bar. I'm passing out my cards in the suites, right? So this is how things was. So I'm walking around the seats. I'm the manager of the people. You know, I don't do it. I just tell people what to do. And many of the people around the suites, they'll come and say, so what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm the manager. You know, no, you do more than that. You're not, because the managers talk to you. The other managers talk to you. So you got to be more than just the manager. And I was like, no, I'm just the manager here. So, okay, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm an attorney. I knew it. I knew there was something about you that was different. And I said to myself, well, what did you know? He said, the way you move, the way they react to you. You don't say a lot, but when you come around, people move in a different way. And I thought that was something, again, and that's the environment that Tylon talking about, and your air about you. And I think all of us have that, or had that if we believe that, but I think we still do, no matter what age you are, from being young Jay Gibbs to being seasoned Big Larry. You know, we all still have that, regardless of where we are in our time, because there's a certain set of people that we will encounter that will know, oh, he ain't to play with. And then there's moments where they're like,
and I don't think it has something to do with like the fact that you're, the fact that you're an attorney or UPS or you work in Burger King. I think it's just about, being, having a certain level of confidence or having a certain ear about yourself that says, and it communicates to people that, it's like, not only iron sharpen iron, but real knows real. People know when they're talking to real people, and then people know when they're talking to somebody that's pretentious. People know when they're talking about somebody who knows what they're talking about, and people know when they're talking to somebody that don't know too much. And sometimes, but they say the empty barrel makes the most of the people that's, going off and don't know most talking, know very little. So, I think, being nice, it has its place and it has its value, being necessary, but being real too. I think knowing and being honest with who you are. And it took me a long time to arrive at that space. Because like I said, I used to fight all the time. I was a mess because I was so insecure. First of all, I had Napoleon complex. I was a short dude. And I was so glad this one summer that I just grew like just 2 more inches. So now I'm 5'9", but I was like 5'7". I was like, no, I don't want to be short and stuff. So I always feel like I have something to prove. And I lost a lot of opportunities, to be honest, too. So people were listening that, you know, being a knucklehead and being insecure and stuff, you lose out on a lot of opportunities, and you just start to understand and say, why am I behaving this way? And then you actually meet people. And I was just really fortunate to have really good mentors. They weren't called mentors at that time when I was growing up, you know, just really good teachers and, you know, people in the community that kind of see certain potential in you and they kind of guide you and say, yeah, I saw you doing that and you shouldn't have been doing that, you know? And plus, by the way, we had a different sense of community, by the way, back then. I don't want to give away my age, but I think one of the things that's just so powerful about, you know, for fatherhood and having a group that you understand what you were just talking about was like so crucial about complexity that people forget that there is a range, there is a dynamic when you're talking about men. And, you know, people, you know, go for the low hanging fruit. They don't like to think about things and process and try to lump everybody all together. But dynamic when you talk about manhood, you talk about fatherhood. I got disconnected. You're muted, Johnny. Johnny.
Yeah, you were going in and out.
Is it me?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But we I think we heard what you said. Just seemed like what you said was you was on a little bit of the dope or something. So you know, a little bit something like that. I think Larry understood you better from back in them hazy days.
Yeah,
he was up there, FSU.
That's the way we talk. That's the way we talk. Is that? But I did want to throw something in.
Yeah.
You know, when I saw the subject, I was like, oh, no more Mr. Nice Guy. You know, and just speaking for myself, you do whatever you're most comfortable in. I know for me, that role was always the nice guy. You know, they say, if you said, man, Larry, oh man, he's a nice guy. He's a good dude, you know, but you know, you play the roles that's most comfortable to you. Now you take with my kids, however, I was not nearly as nice. In fact, what I consider necessary, they consider nasty. You know? When I said, because I mean, I had a strict rule, but that was the rule I was raised by. When you get 18, you need to get out my house, or you need to be on your way out my house. You know, you better be thinking about something, you know. Now they thought that was very nasty and, oh, why you do me this way? But what they did not understand, and what my father taught me, was that, son, until you get out of the house and on your own, you cannot grow. You cannot grow as a man. And how are you going to be able to take care of a family when someone is always taking care of you? You know, and those kind of things stuck with me. So I think as we move to, you know, different types of behavior, they mean different things to different people. That's all I was trying to say.
You know, you bring. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Elder Thomas.
I just want to just quickly. It's like people think that I'm a nice guy and quiet, but I can remember this one incident. Anybody knows about in-laws? Well, anyway, my father-in-law was at the house. My wife and I were there. And, you know, he started talking almost to the point where he's going to put his foot down and say some stuff in my house. It's me and my wife, his daughter, but my wife. And I you know, that I stood up and told him exactly, hey, this is my house. You got your house over on Northwest 6th, but this is my house. And in this house, you have to respect me as the man of the house. Either you respect me, you can leave, but I will have respect in my house. I'm not a teenager. I think at that time I was about 30-something years old. I'm around there. I am not a teenager. I'm a grown man with a family. So respect me. If not, go just get out my house. And he left. Came back later and tried to talk. No. This is not the time. This is not the time. So I think sometimes, no woman, Mr. Nice Guy, you have to set barriers or limits, situations with people that you meet. If not, sometimes they want to walk all over you.
Hey, Ron, I'm glad. Teeny, go ahead.
I just have a question. And I think Brother Lionel mentioned something about toxic masculinity a little bit earlier. When exactly did masculinity become toxic? I thought masculinity was revered and encouraged for not just men, but especially black men. But now it seems that masculinity is toxic, and I'm wondering when did all that change?
Oh, that wasn't me said that. That was actually Tylon said that. But what I will say is it changed when Oprah and the other talk show hosts who don't know anything about being a man letting on a black man come up with new stereotypes, sociological stereotypes or socioeconomic stereotypes that they think that they can impede or impose on manhood and what they think manhood should be versus what it is. Right. When it comes to being a man, particularly because you got other stereotypes, and we got to watch out because just because people on TV don't mean they're telling the truth. And so we buy into any type of asinine logic when people come up with something like, just your truth. I'm like, when has any man or woman, right? Any man or woman have the character, or which man or woman have the character enough to own truth versus the truth? Because every time I heard the word truth, it was always led by the word the truth, not a truth. The truth is not a truth, it's the truth. But when you got people just getting on TV and just spitting off any kind of thing and any kind of logic that have no kind of scientific ramification behind it, then what we do is we just eat it up as a social norm and nobody really question it. And that's the danger of men really being silent and sitting there and allowing other people, just because they're on TV or have a big microphone, to go ahead and reshape the narrative of what it is to be a man, even though they're not a man. And so that's what happens when you got a woman that's bitter, you understand, but want to give advice to a man to make him better. That's asinine. I cannot get better for somebody who's belligerent or bitter and haven't even created to make themselves better. You better start with you first and then work your way out. And so that's the history of that toxic masculinity. That's what you call talk show host logic. It has nothing to do with manhood.
Come on now.
You better get. Hey, a lot of you getting the pitchforks and the torches ready. But I listen, I don't think you're gonna get one argument about that from any. I'm hoping I'm not believing you're gonna get, because I think that Eddie brought that question for a reason, because I think that is a big factor for us as men and as fathers, that someone has begin to redefine us, and then we can't live up to what they have redefined. That's hard. I can't, if you expect me to be one way in some way that you made an ideal way for me to be and said, this is what I have to be, that's probably not going to happen. I'm never going to be successful. And I think, I'm going to take a page out of your book. And a part of this is, when I think about human beings and how we operate, it might have been this twisted thing that we had an idea as men, how we wanted women to be. And so what happens now is twisted, that now women saying, this is how we want men to be, and this is what we determine. And because they have a bigger microphone, our microphone of what we want them to be has been oppressive. And now their microphone is not oppressive, it's reality that we need to do if we want to be better for them. And that's not a conversation that you're going to get to have in some places, because people will begin to say, well, you being toxic. By even saying that, you can't take accountability for what you're doing as men. But I did just take accountability. The reason why women are the way they are, most of them, is because of something we did as men. Maybe not directly as that man to that woman, but our society of men. And what we also, as we talk about all the time, our privilege of what we have, even if we are the outcasts of that, even if we are the exception, we still will be lumped into the overall group. I was listening to some things recently where, it's some crazy things out there. And I think that we have to also, and I think this idea of being the no more Mr. Nice Guy, I think that that's expected. So sometimes you got to do what they don't expect us to do. I know that for one thing, that I know the people that love me the most in the world, people who like me the most. You know what I learned about them? There was people who did not like me when they first met me. They had preconceived notions about me, and they already figured that I was like this or like that. And then when they got to know me, I'm the only person they ever want around. They love me more than Jesus Christ sometimes himself. And I say, well, why? Why would that happen? Because we are human and we feel guilt when we're wrong. And when we're wrong about somebody or something, we want to make it up. We want to say, I'm going to prove that I wasn't a bad person for thinking wrong about this person. This person now is my best. This person, I love them more than anything else. And so those are these are, we talk about these topics, and this is where a lot of times I have an issue when I'm listening to platforms and people talking, because we don't get down to the humanistic part of these things. We can stay on the superficial, that man, woman, man, woman, man, woman. But man and woman are both human. And we have defense mechanisms. We operate in a place of insecurity. We operate in a place of fear. We operate in all of those places. But if we don't say it and we don't be vulnerable about it, how do we ever get to that? And then that's where it's no more Mr. Nice Guy. We feel like we gotta set everything straight. And that turns from not Mr. Nice Guy to what I always fear. When you go from being a Mr. Nice Guy, you go to being Mr. Abusive. And that's when you're gonna need Johnny to come bail you out when the police come by there and arrest you for domestic violence, that because you wasn't a nice guy. Nice guys get stabbed in the neck. I'm just letting you know. Nice guys get stabbed in the neck, in the arm, in the shoulder, and they sometimes might still get arrested, depending on how the police feel that day. So you have to be mindful of these things. And we have to find a new way as fathers to kind of like maneuver through this. And it starts with what we kind of said tonight, knowing, and I think most of the father I heard say, knowing who we are as fathers first and who we are as men, then we can maneuver. And I give you, let me shut up, and I'm gonna give you an example of what I mean by this. Yesterday I was doing my class, and we were talking about the Erickson psychosocial steps of development. And I asked the class, who was partly men and women, young men and women, all but most of them were in over 18. And that was the stage 6 of intimacy versus isolation. And when I went through there asking them what the students, what did they think that they were on, the majority of the males, the men, were on isolation. And the majority of the females, women, were on intimacy. And I asked the males, why do you think you guys are on isolation? And many of them, you know, what do we think they said? Because they trying to get themselves together. Because they need to be who they need to be first before they can be intimate with anybody. And I said, you guys, most of you guys on the right path. That's the right path to be on. Get yourself together first, because you can't be intimate with nobody when you still got role confusion from the previous stage. You know, you can't do it. It can't happen. You got to get yourself together, be able to provide something, provide for yourself. Then you can provide some intimacy to somebody. You can't give intimacy without having yourself already established. So isolate yourself for enough time. You know, go be like Johnny, be up in the suites, giving out your card, getting some good customers, you know, and then when you got your stuff together, then you go look for that intimacy, because the age from intimacy, isolation is from 18 to 40. So you got plenty of time. And during that time after your intimacy, then we should start thinking about having those babies.
Ron.
Let me get off the soapbox, but
a quick one to add to that, Ron. You have to learn to live with yourself first. And this is for everyone, both male and female. Learn to live with yourself first before you put another person in your space. Because think about it. Living with yourself is hard enough. Living by yourself can be very hard enough to loneliness and trying to survive. Then you put someone else. Then you put children into the space. Then you put grandma, in-laws. Again, I support that, Ron. You have to have that isolation first. And so when someone comes in your space, you're able to at least to be on your own. And if something happens. So I'm on full board with where that comment is made. Isolation first before you make someone come into your space.
I want to go back, I'm gonna take us back a little bit to answer Eddie's question, because I don't disagree with what Lightborn says. I 100% agree. But you have to understand, for me, with toxic masculinity, just breaking it apart. Toxic is something that's infectious, right? When something's toxic, anything that's good can be deemed bad if too much of it is had, right? Even when you eat healthy, and Rohan can back me up, even when you eat healthy, when you eat too much of a certain food, it has a bad effect on your body.
Yes.
So what happens is, I think when you start to talk about toxic, the idea of masculinity is not a bad thing. It becomes toxic because it starts to infect other people who don't know how to use it properly. And so when you start to look at people, and Ron alluded to this with the role confusion, when you start to look at people who don't know their place and don't understand their role, then they take on masculine traits. They use it inappropriately, and it then becomes toxic. And so when you start to talk about toxic masculinity, it's not, for me, my personal belief, it's not the men who are deemed toxic masculinity. It's the people who don't understand how to be masculine who are toxic. And they're the ones portraying and using everything wrong, which grows into that whole idea that men are infecting the minds of other people and they don't know how to behave now. And it's never that, because again, when you start to talk about what's your idea of a man, only a man can answer that question. Just like what's a woman can answer, a woman has to answer that question. I can tell you my idea, a woman, by the body parts, but the behavior is always subjective to whoever you're talking to. And so for me, toxic masculinity is not so much a bad thing. I think it's a misunderstanding of what masculinity is.
That is an excellent observation, because I guess when I see toxic masculinity identified, it's almost like the narrative of what I would consider typical manhood is being redefined. For example, if you're a strict disciplinarian with your kids, um, it seems like nowadays, because of the timeout, type of scenario, if you choose to use corporal punishment, that's and you're a father, that's toxic masculinity. Why aren't you setting your child aside and talking to them and stuff like that? Or if there's an issue between you and your partner, and you take a stand on whatever that issue is, and your partner doesn't agree with that stance, you're toxic because you're laying the law down as the head, or exemplifying headship as a part of that partnership. So I agree with your assessment, Brother Robert, because I would agree that there are men who are not secure with themselves, who maybe over exaggerate their masculinity in order to show that they're a man. But at the same time, um, the, the the idea of masculinity should still, that standard should never be lowered. It's because other people goof off or misuse or abuse their masculine traits. That does not mean that the bar should be lowered for a man to be who he is, which is he's supposed to be the protector. He's supposed to be um, um, all the positive traits of masculinity he is supposed to exemplify. That bar should never be lowered, and it seems like what I've seen in the last of these years is that bar is lowered, and guys have just been emasculated. Um, their weapon of masculinity, it has been dulled. The senses have been lost, and it's, I don't know, it's just different.
I'm glad you said that, Teeny, because we have to understand the injustice, and you can commit an injustice with your masculinity. You can commit an injustice with your presence. And you got to understand this if you don't understand nothing else. And this is for all the guys. And justice is coming, I call it the acronym. It comes in 3 phases: implicit, complicit, and explicit. Remember those 3 words. That's ICE. Implicit, complicit, and explicit. Simply mean this.
I love it.
When your masculinity was challenged or just deemed obsolete or irrelevant, right? That's your masculinity. That's your very existence as a man. And when you become guilty via being implicit, it's because you stood there, you was a part of it, you heard it, and you said nothing, even though they talking about your very existence. So that's the implicit justice that you was a part of when it came to your own detriment and your manhood. Then you got complicit, which means they made a joke or belittled your manhood or your very relevance, reason for being a man or being born a man. And you just stood there and laughed with everybody else when they laughed because you felt like, hey, that ain't talking to me. It ain't no big deal, even though they spoke specifically to manhood and who you were. And then you say explicit. And where the explicit injustice come in at is when they say, it's what we're dealing with right now, is you don't need a man to do this. This is all the stereotypes that you hear. I'm the mother and the father. You understand what I'm saying? And men are just deemed obsolete in the 21st century for whatever reason. Give up your rights. Those are what you call explicit injustices that we face in manhood. And so anytime you sit around and allow people to laugh at the very thing that you exist in, and you're a being, then you can either be implicit when it comes to that injustice on your life and your existence and your relevance. You can be complicit when it comes to your situation and your existence and your relevance, or you can be explicit. Either way it go, men are guilty for saying nothing, be it either one of those ICE acronyms.
Mm. Hey, let's not, listen. Let's not have too much crying, guys. We gotta remember, you start whining, and then they saying they'll be at our neck saying that now we complaining about wanting to be men, about wanting to be
talking
fathers.
about, no, it's a difference between complaining and confronting.
Oh,
That's a difference.
That's how bringing
Say that, Pastor.
Listen, listen. That's all I listen. I'm gonna say what I say because I know I'm gonna get the sharp things that need to be said. You know, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm gonna put on my little devil's advocate hat and throw it out there. But people need to hear this, and you need to be able to hear these kind of messages. This is a shameless plug. We are here every Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Fatherhood Talks. If you want to have and hear these kind of conversations, like, share, and subscribe. And fathers, if you want to have a little bit more intimate conversation, you know, that's not made for public consumption, join us Wednesday night on the Zoom meeting. And it's you'll see it in the chat down in the message of how to get on to that Zoom link. Or you can look at my page or look at the Fatherhood Talk page, and you'll be able to get on there and have these kind of more in-depth conversations. We just hitting some of the surface what we're talking about here right now, but it's important stuff that normally you will not hear. You will hear what I like to call, I don't know what's the best term to use, sympathizers with the idea that we are too masculine. And being too masculine makes us toxic. I don't think that we know how to be masculine enough. That's what my problem. I don't think we're not masculine enough because, listen, if we was a little bit more masculine, we would say, I'm not going a damn place. And you're not his father. I'm his father. And I'm going to do what I need to do for him and her. That's being more masculine. Now, you be careful because the police come. This is, and I'm joking about that, but that has become our Achilles heel in this idea of expressing a lot of our idea of wanting to really be the masculine men that we are, and then it looks as it's toxic because somebody told them if we stand up and say no, if we pull a James Evans or George Jefferson or Fred Sanford. Fred Sanford didn't have a wife, but I guess we'll use him as an example. But if we use, he did have Elizabeth. If we use those men as examples of how they dictated what was going to happen in their house and in their families, we can't do that today. Because when I look at those men, people would consider them men today as toxic, misogynistic men who don't love their wives and don't care about their kids. And I am at some point in many instances, even Fred Sanford, the way he treated Lamont all the time. But that was a reason why he treated Lamont that way, because he did love his son, but he wanted his son to know, hey, it's just us, man. Your mama gone. Esther might come over here and buddy you up, but I can't buddy you up, brother, because you're gonna have to own this legacy of this junkyard after I'm gone. And maybe people didn't see it that way, but that's the way I see it. And that was my message for me to move as a man and how I move. And that's just the TV versions of the stuff I see. That doesn't neglect the real live versions of my own father, stepfathers that I had, and men that I seen do the same things. Grandfather, you know. So it was a reinforcement. But I think today we're listen. They almost say all men trying to be women now.
Well, you know, I think Hollywood has a very clear agenda, and I think, you know, it's supported by, you know, this so-called like liberal, like, you know, even the idea of toxic masculinity is like ridiculous. But listen, we know where this is coming from, and I think that part of the pushback is having forums and platforms like this, safe spaces where people can be authentic and talk and have a conversation. Because what we do when people do hear us speaking, they are inspired and they're encouraged to kind of stand up and stand firm in who they are. But I think also we have to do another part of it, and I have a independent film company. I invite each and every one of you who are on this call and people who are in Airview, go to my website. It's called IamMetropolis.com, so that we can help to develop ideas. We can't get frustrated. Like before the show started, I was ranting about the woman king or that whatever. Right. I saw it and I thought it was horrible, despicable. I call it really, what was it? I call the Purple 2.0. Right? So it's one thing to tell people what not to do. Like people are boycotting it and whatever the case, don't see it. And I think that sometimes when we tell people not to see something, that just makes them want to see it. But I think we have another alternative, and it's part of being men. And this is what I see is, why don't we tell our own stories? Why? Just because it's an independent company and it's small. My independent company is called Iron Metropolis, or whatever the case might be. It becomes big when everybody, let's say on this call, support it. You go to the website or share the information, or there's a way that people can support the film that I'm doing about the wrongful conviction crisis that we have in this country. And it's called Disappearing Freedom, the Decline of Justice. So please visit. I implore, I plead with all the men who are on this call and other men who hear this and understand that, that this is an attack. It's a deliberate, it's not happenstance. They want to totally erase, what it means to be a man. Man equals bad. And that's what that word toxic masculinity is all about. So, my pushback, and I've never felt powerless in my life, is I'm going to start not only this film company, but I also have this radio station, and I'm giving voice to the voiceless and people who are having very intentional difficulty in having an alternative message that no, being a man is not negative. It's not saying that men are unworthy of justice, men are unworthy of being heard or have no real value. And so the company is called Iron Metropolis, IronMetropolis.com. Please visit it. Please, if you can and you're able to, we have a GoFundMe page for this film about the wrongfully convicted situation that we have in this country, and hopefully this will free a lot of people who are wrongfully convicted.
Definitely put it in chat, Tarlon, so that we can.
Sure.
Nobody messes up how it's
Yeah, put it in.
Thank you.
Ron, I did want to say, I never looked at Sanford and Son that way. Mm-hmm. It's funny because as a kid, when you're watching a show and you're just laughing, you talk about Fred, about Elizabeth, and he about to die. And Fred was the first person that taught us about the what they call it, the dance where the water be splashing or whatever the people do when he holding his chest about Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. But I never looked at him in that way from a father perspective. I know I looked at James Evans that way, more so because I saw myself in Michael or JJ. and that was daddy to me. So I never looked at him at him conversing with Lamont in that way. But you're right. He was teaching Lamont about it's just us. How do we maintain, even with Grady, even with Esther coming through, how do we maintain this small business we have here in this community and still stay men in our society and not let the world dictate who we are supposed to be? They may call it junk, but I call this the way I eat. So I think I never looked at it. I never looked at it the way until you just saw it. So thank you for the revelation as far as that, Ron. I may start looking at Sanford and Son a little differently. Go back and take some of those shows.
And another thing, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were done?
No, I was saying it was great. It's great. Go ahead. I'm done. Yeah.
No, but and looking back, because it's not until you get to adult to appreciate this, but
right.
Small business ownership. Yeah. George Jefferson made it because he owned dry cleaners. He taught legacy. He taught building an inheritance, building a, and then also you had Sanford and Son. He was Sanford. He was saying, who's going to take over this junkyard when I'm done? I'm leaving it to my son.
Yeah.
And so he taught his son the business. And it's the things that you know, as a kid, like you said, Gaspar, you don't really think about that until you get older, and you're like, oh, he was teaching generational wealth.
Yeah.
They were teaching generational wealth within the Black community.
Yeah.
So that's something that you have to look at and start to, you know, analyze, because some people had the fortitude. And I'll even say, even with and I'll get some shucks on this, Bill Cosby, he even had his where he taught that same knowledge and skill, because you had him to be the first Black family that was a complete unit, that had a
professional mom,
professional mom, professional father, doctor, lawyer, and all the kids. And you still had the kids a little lost in life, but they still had the parental guidance. And so you have to, you look at that, and those things were truly introduced. It's just that I think because everything took a comedic stance, it didn't penetrate until you get older.
Yeah.
And that's why I brought up, and I'm very adamant, because I used to watch All in the Family.
Yeah.
Right? As a kid.
Yeah.
And we know that Archie Bunker was what we would consider one of the most, he would be the king of toxic, racist, everything. Right?
Definitely not politically correct.
Right. And the only person who could get with him was George Jefferson.
Yeah.
Who was, again, what we would consider today, George Jefferson would be the worst thing that you could ever have as a man, period.
Yeah.
You know, but when you really, but guess what I knew about him? He loved Lionel to death.
Gotcha.
He loved his wife, Weezy, to death. He loved him. He loved him. And everything he did was being this Black man who probably great-grandmother was a slave. And him being able to be who he was, he couldn't be passive. He couldn't be soft. He had to be all about his business, and he couldn't be Mr. Nice Guy.
Right.
He couldn't be a nice guy because the world to him hadn't been nice. But we have kind of, we turned, a lot of this is turned on our heads, and we allude, and I just want you to think about that. Where you get the idea that Sanford, listen, these things now as an adult, and I think this is what I'm saying, Johnny, when we can go back as grown men and look at these things, and I look at the things that our children have to look at, we were blessed. It don't seem like we were blessed, but we was majorly blessed to have these messages and these images to grow up watching, because what we have now is
craziness.
Too much information.
No, it's just crazy. I mean, and think about it. We on here, man. People are afraid to say it. It was craziness. That's what it is. They pushing LGBTQ every time you talk, and then when you see somebody, there's interracial relationship, and this is nothing against it. You know, what we're saying is that when you see too much, you understand that there's an agenda. We have to be really clear about that. This is not happening. This is not because, we did a market research and we said more people want to see this. No, it's being crammed down our throats. It's everywhere because it's about erasing, manhood, fatherhood, and those images. Even I remember, do y'all guys remember That's My Mama? I used to love that show. The guy was a barber. He had his own little chair. If you don't notice those shows, what you're saying, Ron, that should be another show just on television now, and then television then, and somebody need to do a comparison contrast as to how important and powerful images are in today's world society, and the fact that you have whole generations who've never been exposed and don't even know what we're talking about when we're talking about Good Times. Don't know what we're talking about when we talk about Sanford and Son. They were like, what's that? You know what I'm saying? All they know is Disney.
I think, taking back on what you guys said, I think the biggest elephant or gorilla in the room, since we talk about Sanford and Son, gorilla, oh man. Boy, used to coin that joke, but if you gorilla, either way, the biggest gorilla in the room is the fact that a lot of this, and it's amazing you brought that up, Ron, because a lot of this with the Sanford and Son thing actually speaks to the socioeconomic makeup, right? Or inheritance or situation or status of the Black community. And the gorilla in the room is they didn't have to trick you out of the equity of owning your community. They shamed you out of it.
Preach.
So anytime somebody can shame you out of ownership, complete ownership, you have no mortgage on this. And so what Fred Sanford was saying, I'm leaving you a debt-free property, but because it don't look like TV and what the TV say is success, and then a lot of generations, and I'm talking about educated Negroes, have been shamed out of their equity and shamed out of the community, and the only change you ever got and will ever receive is gentrification. And so when we're going to talk about Fred Sanford, then guess what? It's the scientific ramification of what gentrification really is, when people can shame you for being who you are and what you have. And that's the greatest shame of all.
Like that.
Wow.
Well said.
All right, Lightburn, again, dropping knowledge. And Ron, we're close to that point, but I know you're going to handle it. You're on mute, Ron. You're on mute.
Everybody had their roles and positions on this show, because, boy, if it wasn't for Johnny, when Johnny not here, boy, we'd be going over. You know that, right? Johnny like the timekeeper of the show. And that's good, because that's what we want to be able to keep. Because on our show on Monday night, we're not that good. Timekeeping, we be 12 o'clock. It's supposed to be over at 11. It was 12 o'clock. We're still talking about things. So let's begin to let me first say this. If anybody has any closing things that they would like to say in reference, just and I really encourage fathers to say something about this that we talked about tonight, because we really went deep with this topic. And we talked about something that is at the heart of many of us, this idea of us re-owning ourselves as the men and fathers that we want to be, and what that means. And does that really mean that we have to be no more Mr. Nice Guy? And we have those images of, and I'm just using those two guys because those are men I think of that weren't these men that I remember from my childhood that weren't that nice, but you've seen that they had love. And so they wasn't nice at all at any time. I remember James gonna beat up the gangbang.
He was necessary. James, like Lightborn said, James was necessary.
All the time.
All the time.
Majorly, so you just begin, and let me say this one last thing. For them living in Cabrini Greens, if he wasn't there, what would have happened to his children? I just want people to think about this.
That's right.
The idea that what we have end up happening, that we have mothers today who can't live in the projects with their husband or the father of their children. What happens to their children? But when we look at that, that small thing, he lived in the house with them, and how many things that he stopped from happening because he was the father in the house. And that no matter if he was struggling, he had odd jobs, what would have happened, and what twists and turns would that show would have made without him being in the house? It would have looked like some of the stuff we look at today. Guns, drugs. Thelma would have been out there tricking. Michael would have been in the gang, and JJ would have already been dead.
And you know what? You saying that for as much as they didn't make, he always kept the wife at home so she was able to be there for the kids. He would refuse. She would try to say, I can help out. He goes, no, you need to be here. I'll go out, I'll work, and I'll handle it on that piece. That way you can be here with the kids, and that way we can keep a complete home intact.
That's toxic, man. That's toxic. What you doing spouting that stuff, man? Your wife can't be at home no more.
But Eddie, what happened after they got rid of? But what happened to her? What happened to the family after when they got rid of the father? You never seen her anymore, hardly. And I know we know behind the scenes, people know how the show went, but it ended up being that the neighbor, Luana, was there more than the mom was, because she had to be off somewhere providing at this time, and the kids were left on their own. They was old enough to be left on it, but they had to provide for themselves. So their family structure had made a dramatic change
when James died
from what they had before. So these are the things we have to think about. Listen, history, as I will say always, if we don't know our history, we can't prevent the things that's going to happen in the future.
That was my cousin.
And Eddie, I'm gonna say this. I don't care. I might say this and people give me pushback, but every woman's desire is to have a man provide so they can be at home with the family. They can sit there and say that's not what they want. But every woman, in my opinion, every woman is looking for a man to provide so they can do that.
Okay.
All right. So we know that Gene will be being canceled next week. If you don't see Gene back on the show next week, you know he got canceled. Because you know that's almost a no-no, the modern lifestyle today, brother. But we know that and I agree 100% with you, Gene, because when you hear the complaints from many women who are not in that, that's what their complaint is.
Yes.
And that's
what they have lost is the opportunity to have a family. They have everything else, but they weren't able to have the family that they desired, and they go into the last final stage of Erickson's stages of development with despair. I'm just keeping it real with you. You know, scientific, psychological, that they go into the final stages with despair because they missed out on generations. So with that being said,
hey Ron.
Yes.
Ron, I just want to make a quick announcement. Gotta fly. Free haircuts at my church. 649 Northwest 15th Way, Fort Lauderdale, on the first Wednesday of each month from 5 to 6:30. Free haircuts.
All right. Well,
free haircuts. So that's in Fort Lauderdale proper.
Fort Lauderdale, yeah. Down from the Carter Park.
Free haircuts on the first Wednesday of the month. So
Yeah,
you know any people?
I'll shoot you a copy.
Okay, let's shoot a copy and we'll get that out to people. So if you're in the Fort Lauderdale area, even if you're down to Overtown, just catch the bus up there. If you're in West Palm Beach, catch the bus down. Yeah. Free haircut. Listen,
might have to fly in from New York.
Yeah, you know how that goes.
Gene, Lightbird, Eddie, myself, Tylon, Ron, y'all make sure you get there now.
Yeah, I don't gotta get there, brother. I'm good. I think I'm good right here. I got the James Evan going on. All right. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, man. This has been my spirit is up more than it could ever be up. I feel energized and to put a little bit more sauce on this energy that we have tonight. We're gonna do our aspirations to get us on and carry us to the next day. So, fathers, I say, I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of honor.
I am.
I
am a man of courage.
A man of courage.
I say I am.
I say I am.
I am a man of respect.
Man of respect.
I am so hyped tonight. I want you to know that I am.
I'm so hyped tonight. I want to let you know that I am.
Don't be smart. You are. We are. Championship Everybody again, just next week, right here, Fatherhood Talks. Like, share, subscribe, and if you want to come on, see tomorrow night when we get a little bit more intimate and we talk about how to handle anger.
Brother, y'all have a good night.
Good night. Good night, brothers.
God bless you to you, each and every one, every family.
Ron, you there?
Hold on 1 second.